Hi, we're speaking to Dr. Putman about her recent research on lizards and their perception of colour. So, Dr. Putman, could you tell us a quick summary of the paper, please?
Yeah, sure. So I do a lot of work in urban neighborhoods, and so we've designed this T-shirt at the Natural History Museum where I work in color, and it distinguishes us as researchers working in people's neighborhoods. And as we were doing this research, I thought, you know, these T-shirts are really conspicuous and bright, and they identify us to people, but they might also make us conspicuous to our study animals. That, you know, we're trying to measure differences in animal behavior between urban sites and rural sites. And so I designed this study to look at whether T-shirt color effect on animal behavior. And so we work with the western fence lizard, and this lizard has ventral blue patches, so a blue patch on their belly and their throat. And they use this mainly in males. Males have like the bright blue patches, and they use this as it's a sexually selected signal used to communicate with each other. So males will show their bellies to each other in like territorial disputes, and might use it to attract a mate. And so we thought, well, maybe because blue is this color that they use in a mating context, that they might have some sort of bias for this color. And so we tested whether lizards tolerated closer approaches to a blue shirt. We tested a red shirt and a gray shirt. And so red is obviously a distinct color from blue, so that's why we selected red. And then we selected gray because it's not a bright color, but it's also found on the body of the lizard. So like the main color of the lizard is more of like a body color. And so we were testing, you know, whether they're responding to a body color, which could be blue or gray, or if it had to do something with signaling, which would be specifically a blue color. And so I wore these 4 different colored T-shirts. I had dark blue, bright blue, gray, and red. And I would just, when I spotted a lizard, I would approach it, and then I would measure how close could I get to the lizard before it fled. And this is called the flight initiation distance. And this is really standard behavioral measurement of animal risk assessment. So animals that are less afraid will allow you to approach closer. And then after I did this behavioral trial, I would attempt to capture the lizard. And so this was another variable we measured was, you know, was I successful in capturing the lizard? And I typically was not successful if during the trial it ran into a refuge or like really far away. So if it had a really exaggerated escape response, I was not able to capture the lizard. And so what we found was that the lizards did tolerate the closest approaches when I wore blue, so I was able to approach them more closely. And I had a much higher capture success rate. So when I was wearing dark blue, I was able to capture a lizard over 80% of the time. But if I was wearing gray or red, this dropped to about 40% of the time. So it was quite a striking difference depending on which color T-shirt I was wearing. And so this was pretty cool. Our hypothesis was supported. So we thought, you know, lizards might have a bias for blue and they might be less afraid of this color. And that's basically what we found. And it's pretty cool. Like if for a researcher, at least, it really shows that what you wear can have an influence on your effectiveness at conducting research, but also your results. So if you're studying behavior, you know, you could get different behaviors based off of whatever color you're wearing.
So you said that the blue, and that's quite a similar color to the color that the lizards are. Why were they running away from red? Is that a color that they see often, or is it more red is associated with threat and danger for them?
Yeah, so we don't really know the exact mechanism of like why they're responding to these colors, and red is not a common color in their environment. And so, yeah, maybe they're just not familiar with this color and they're freaked out by, and it could be more conspicuous like against the background environment. But we did measure that. So we took photographs of the t-shirts in the environment. And red was obviously one of the most conspicuous colors, but gray elicited the same response as red, and gray is not a bright, novel color to these animals. So that was kind of the interesting thing. We thought red would be the scariest, which to us is like a dull, I don't know, unassuming color, had almost the same.
And so I love lizards and I love taking photos of lizards. So if I want to take photos, should I wear blue?
Yeah, so if you want to take photo of a Western fence lizard, yeah, because that's the species we worked with. But this is something that we would love to test further, because lizards have evolved a diversity of colors that they use to signal. So depending on the species, you might have, you know, green anole, for example, uses the color red as a signaling color. So maybe they prefer the color red over blue. And these are just studies that should be done to determine whether this is sort of a general pattern in the animal kingdom.
And does this also mean for like for animal research, animal behaviour research, it's actually quite important to register what researchers were wearing and the colours, so you can then look back and see if colour is having an impact?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the big takeaway of our paper was that this is something researchers need to be cognizant about. And so studying animal behavior, you should either be wearing the exact same thing every time you go out into the field, or randomize what you wear so that you're not biasing your results in some way. And we showed that hand capture rates were greatly affected by what we were wearing. And so if you're trying to conduct research, I don't know, on a budget, or you don't have a lot of time, you might want to do a pilot study to determine which color is most effective. Are you most effective at doing your research?
In the colour, yeah. That's really interesting. So what impact do you think this research has on how lizards see colours? Does it tell us a bit more about how they're seeing their surroundings?
Well, we don't really know. So these lizards, their visual system has not been studied in the particular species that we looked at, but all lizards that have been studied have tetrachromatic vision. So they have 4 cones in their eyes, cones. So we have a red, green, and blue cone. All lizards that have been studied have red, green, and blue, but also ultraviolet, so they can see in the ultraviolet range. So this was something we were unable to capture because we couldn't determine whether seeing in the ultraviolet, like how they were able to view the t-shirts. But a lot of animals see in ultraviolet, like birds have ultraviolet vision as well. And one thing that's really interesting actually is washing your clothes increases ultraviolet reflectance. And so depending on like if you've washed your clothes recently, you might be viewed completely differently than someone who has like a dirty t-shirt.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of laundry detergents have like these brighteners that leave a residue that increase ultraviolet reflection and make your clothes look brighter.
That could possibly be having an impact as well.
Well, it's something we had to be careful of. So I couldn't wash the t-shirts in detergent because it would have made them look different to the lizards, but to the human eye, you know, we can't really tell. So I had to take into account like all these things that could be influencing how the lizards view us. I mean, even wearing sunscreen, your ultraviolet reflectance. So there's all these things, you know, animals see the world differently than we do, and we just don't think about.
Wow, that's really interesting. It really shows how many like other factors could be affecting how the animals are seeing you. So what's next for this research?
Yeah, so like I said before, it would be really interesting to test different species of lizards that use different types of signals, different colors, to see if this is a general pattern across lizard taxa. And what we really want to know is, does this actually have some sort of cost to the lizard? So if you're wearing a color that they're more afraid of or exhibiting their escape responses towards, is this actually having a negative effect on them? So for instance, if they run away and they go into a refuge, are they spending a long time hiding in that refuge and not doing other activities such as feeding or looking for a mate or whatever, basking? And so that's something that I'm looking at now, is how do these different fear responses translate into kind of health effects? So are we lowering body condition of these animals? And so we don't, from our t-shirt study, we didn't know that. We just know that if we wear one color t-shirt, they might run away when you approach them compared to another one, but is that actually affecting their daily lives?
And the hope is to expand that to involve other lizard types as well. What first got you interested in lizards? And I was looking at some of the other publications you've done, sort of reptiles in general.
Yeah, I've just always loved reptiles, and I think it stems from watching Jurassic Park as a kid, because I was really interested in dinosaurs growing up, and I knew everything about dinosaurs, and my parents ended up buying me a bunch of pet because obviously dinosaurs were not around. So I just grew up with all these pet reptiles, and I fell in love with them. And you know, they often have a bad reputation, so I enjoy kind of being an advocate for them and teaching people that they're not these scary, you know, slimy creatures that sometimes people assume them to be.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for the interview. We're going to put a link to the paper below this video. We'll also put a link to your website and your social media page. Thank you so much for doing this. It was really, really interesting.
For fun. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
All right, bye.